G'day ladies and gents, welcome to War Thunder with Mags. Today I've got a bit of a longer video for you. Actually I think this is going to be one of the longest ones I've ever done. And I'm going to cover the A20G series as it stands in War Thunder. Specifically the three variants that are available. And I'm talking about the Havoc Mark One, the Boston and the A20G. And I'm going to start this one off with the Havoc Mark One. Now the Havoc Mark One is an Era 1 Battle Rank 1.7 heavy fighter slash light medium bomber. Armament's 4 7.7 Browning machine guns, 2 single Vickers K MGs in the turrets, 1 in the dorsal slide window gunner position and 1 sitting directly under the belly. Armament wise the 7.7s are particularly light, but at the battle ranking that it's fighting at, heavy MGs like the 50 calibers and cannons aren't really required. If you get into a match that is 1.7 battle rank, you're going to be fighting reserve biplanes and the very first series of fighters in the game. So as you can see, my allies here are things like the F2A. 7.7 machine guns are more than enough to deal with fighters in this area. Bomb loadout on the Havocs is 4 500-pound bombs, which is particularly heavy for a 1.7 battle rank. It's not enough to really deal with bases in one hit. Even though base health scales, it doesn't scale down enough for 4 500-pounders to be an effective one-shot base kill. So it's usually best to save your 500s for busting pillboxes, which are a particularly high value considering this is a premium aircraft. Now the one thing you'll notice looking at the Havoc is its jetpack paint job. That is because it is a night fighter, or its variant was. Now the interesting part about the history of the Mark One, being a 1.7 battle ranking, it actually has a lower battle rating than the Boston. However, the Havocs came after the Boston. Now as you can see, just lining up my first striker pillboxes here. Try and straight line everything, make the releases as efficient as possible. Tap tap, that's 2 pillbox kills, and then I'll do a roll around once I've passed out of the area and bring back over to strike the third pillbox before moving on to next target. Now as I said, the Havoc Mark One began its life as a Boston. Now when the British received their first shipment of Bostons in, they weren't sure what to do with them at the time. But one of the things that they were looking for was a night fighter slash intruder aircraft. And now the Boston, it wasn't the ideal platform that they wanted, but at the time the things like the Beaufighter and the Mosquito were still only on the drawing board, if that far advanced at all. The most advanced bomber that the RAF had operational at the time was Wellington and the Blenheim, neither of which was suitable for either of these operations. So they began modifications to the Havoc Mark One. Specifically there were 3 modifications involved. First was a pure night fighter variant, which was a combined fighter bomber with all gun emplacements still in place, jet black paint job, and the specialised night fighter exhaust, which you see fitted on the Havoc here. The spikes on the exhaust are actually to extract heat away so the pipes don't glow at night time, giving away the aircraft's location. And the rather large odd muffler shape of the pipe is actually to eliminate engine flash, making the aircraft engine-wise extremely hard to detect at night time. No light, no flash, and minimal sound as possible. The second variant of the Havoc Mark One was a turbine light aircraft. Now what they did with that one is the bomb bay doors were sealed closed, and where the bombs are normally mounted, a massive battery, very similar to what you would have found in World War II submarines, was fitted. The bomber's nose position was removed. All the seats and controls for the bomb controls were removed from the aircraft, and a massive floodlight was mounted directly in the nose of the aircraft. Now the idea was Havoc Mark Ones would go up in this configuration with a couple of fairly standard but black painted Hurricane Mark Ones or Hurricane Mark Twos, for example. They would use radio to keep contact with one another and get one another in position. The Havoc Mark One would be fitted with radar. It would use the radar to track down enemy targets and pull onto their tail. Once it had them locked in, it would activate the searchlight, lighting the aircraft up. The Hurricanes then, having a massive target all lit up like daylight, would manoeuvre in and go in for the kill. The unfortunate part about this is the configuration and the mass of the searchlight required that the 7.7s were removed from the nose, so the only armament the Havoc Mark One had was tail gunners. It didn't take the Germans long to work out that the Havoc was completely impotent from the front, and as a result of having a giant spotlight in the nose, it made it very easy to detect, and the Germans rapidly developed tactics that would allow them to get the Havoc to light up its light, and then they would quickly cut it down before the Hurricanes had a chance to move in and kill the target. And there's my first air kill. If the nose gunners aren't working, swing around and use the tail gunners. Moving on to the artillery. The final configuration was an intruder variant, which was a pure bomber. The nose guns were removed, defensive tail gunners were left in place, external drop tanks were fitted, and the bomb load was increased to 2,400 pounds, and it was used to night raid over the English Channel and hit fortified German positions in France, to which the Havoc was very successful at. The variant we see in game obviously is the first variant, the mixed fighter bomber multi-role, and it's an important thing to remember with all the A20G series of aircraft. The Douglas A20 series was one of the world's first true multi-role fighter bombers. They could be configured to do anything. Some of them dropped torpedoes, some were mounted with cannons. They were configured back and forth depending on what was necessary for them to do. Here I'm going into fighter mode. Having taken my first kill, I'm going for the Su-2 next. In game, the Havoc Mark One is probably the most vulnerable of the three variants of the A20, which is why it has its 1.7 battle rating. It doesn't carry any more armaments than the standard Boston. It carries no more armour than the standard Boston. However, its engine performance is lower and its weight is higher. This is because the Havoc Mark One carries a full radar system, as well as the batteries and the power supplies in order to support the system, making it a much heavier aircraft. Add to that the exhaust modifications needed in order to make the night fighting effective, reduced exhaust flow from the engine, reducing the engine's overall horsepower. The result, both in real life and in game, is an aircraft that was almost 2 tons heavier than the standard model it was based on, but was probably several hundred horsepower lower overall. The effect in game and in real life was an aircraft that had slower acceleration than its contemporary and couldn't maintain quite as high top speed. That said, it's still not bad overall. The acceleration range is still better than most bombers at the time, although it is nowhere near on par with some of the fighters in the game. And despite all the hits I just got on that Su-2, unfortunately it crashed and didn't award a kill, which is a shame because this would have been my second kill. Moving on to an SB-2M. Now this is the absolute bane of the Havocs and the Bostons at this level. These things take a power of damage before they kill. But this is the last plane left on the enemy team, so I have to engage it. As I was saying, its overall top speed, it's maintain about 400 kilometers an hour. Its maximum dive speed is only around 550 to 600, however. Due to the massive extra weight on the aircraft, it will dive fast. But the stress on the wings due to that extra mass will cause it to shear its wings in excessive turns at that speed. Defense-wise, it carries exactly the same armour and structural strength as the earlier built Bostons. No extra armour was added at any time, which is part of where its vulnerability comes from. With its reduced manoeuvrability, acceleration and overall top speed, coupled with no extra armour, the Havoc can be killed when you get it into a higher tier match. It is vulnerable to cannon fire, especially around the wings where they join the centre fuselage. 50 caliber fire there, if it is focused, is also extremely dangerous. However, it can basically ignore 7.62mm hits. As you can see, I've taken hundreds of hits already. It doesn't care, it's not flying any differently to it would normally. And it also has the A20 advantage of basically at this tier being able to ignore AA fire. And a lot of people understate this advantage. not a lot of people realise that much like how base health scales based on the battle rating of the battle, the higher the battle rating, the more health a base such as the one I'm flying over now will actually have. AA damage also scales in much the same way, so a 7.7 gun would basically one-shot any aircraft in the game under about battle rating 5. Battle rating 5 guns do more damage than 4 and so on and so forth. The Havoc, due to its, well, the A20 series in general, due to its excessive structural strength, can effectively ignore almost all anti-aircraft fire in the game. Unless you take a direct hit by one of the larger flak guns, one of the high caliber 88s that's floating around, it will not destroy this aircraft. It will make bits go pink, as you see here, and the aircraft will just keep flying and just won't care. Another vulnerability that you need to be aware of when flying or fighting a Havoc is it does not have self-sealing fuel tanks. If you manage to rip the fuel tanks open in this thing, it will continue to bleed, and bleed fast. So I'm down to 344 rounds of ammunition in the Browning machine guns in the nose. Overall, the aircraft is handling fine despite damage, but I am taking on an SB2M here. And all I can really do is joust. The SB2M is far more manoeuvrable than the Havoc is, but overall top speed, the SB2M cannot run away. The Havoc is nearly twice the speed in level flight. If I could catch this thing on one engine with no problems at all if I felt the need to. An AI has snuck up behind me, so tail gunners are engaging. I'm trying to get hits onto the engine, but as you can see, due to the massive mass of the aircraft and its limited manoeuvrability because of the extra weight, it is very hard to get the guns accurate on a target and score a hit. Just barrel rolling my way out there. The forward guns in air-to-air combat are much better suited for dealing with small fighters, where you can just aim at the centre mass of the aircraft and pump it full of holes until it falls out of the sky. Things like the SB2M, you really need to hit vulnerable spots to guarantee yourself a kill. The forward guns do struggle getting that sort of an accuracy, which is what I'm flicking over to do here. I'm almost out of ammo in the forward gun, so I'm trying to get ahead of the SB2M and keep it on my tail, so I can engage it using the rear gunners. Now, as much as there's only two 7.7s, due to the fact that they are turreted, I can easily aim them and effect kills. As you can see, the SB2M's got out a 2k range. I-15's flying through. I'm just trying to pass under it to give my gunners something to shoot at straight away. Buzz the 2M, take it high angle and immediately take back over the guns. Gotta get rid of this thing, it's annoying the hell out of me. There we go, fireballed him. The AI are almost incapable of killing a Havoc. Without accurate fire, these things will absorb so much damage that it's just not funny. The easiest way to get rid of them in most cases is to fly around and get them all to follow you in a nice big lemming train, then just take over the rear guns and cut them out one at a time. When they start turning away from you because you've hit the boundaries of their patrol area, turn back in and fly back underneath them, get them all back on your tail and go back to shooting them. Now I've got to be aware here, as much as the Havoc can ignore most of this AA fire, there is a lot of it, and I am approaching in on the enemy base. I'm a long way out and I am about to run out of ammunition. Fuel load's still completely fine, I'm not concerned at all. %, throttle, just overtaking the SB2M. I don't want to overtake too fast. I want to keep the window for me to be able to shoot with these gunners open for as long as I possibly can. I'm just trying to score a critical hit, which I just got then. I just killed his nose gunner. And amongst all the other damage I've done, critical hit should secure a kill if he fails to land the aircraft. And for the amount of damage I've punched into him, it should be having difficulty flying. Looking at the way it's wallowing, I would say I've managed to do some form of control surface damage. Unfortunately, the tail gunners aren't accurate outside of about 500 metres. They're very difficult to get on target because you are only firing a single MG. Why I'm scoring a lot of hits here it's not purely accurate fire. Now, there's the problem. My left engine just died. I have no ammunition left in the nose. I should say, now I have no ammunition left in the nose. I had 3 rounds left. Tail gunner is now reloading. Fuel load is good. Left engine is out, however, so I have to take the aircraft to WEP, keep the power up to the right engine, and the right engine has taken damage. And I've basically got to fly from airbase to airbase the whole way home. And this was perhaps one of the most disappointing ends I've ever had to a match, because this was pretty epic. I had a ball in this match. The SB2M has crashed. He didn't make the landing after all. I had done enough damage to take him out. I've secured the kill, bringing my air kills up to 3 at the moment. However, my right engine has just gone black and is currently losing power. Now, because of the extra mass on something like a Havoc, its actual glide speed, or its stalling speed, is 200 kilometers an hour indicated airspeed, and I'm below 200 kilometers an hour. I'm struggling to keep the nose up. I'm flaring as fast as I can. The runway is mounted on a hill. Ouch! There's the runway right there. That's how close I got flying from their air base on one engine with critical damage to the right. But I get the repair up. I can fix this plane and get back in. But here's where we've got an issue with the mechanics that I don't particularly like. The enemy team still has AI up because they've got one AI still flying. Even though I'm getting a repair at the moment, we lose the match. And what a disappointing end. 3 air kills, 8 ground kills, final blow, fighter and bomber awards, 43,705 silver lions, 3,554 base XP. No air XP listed, but that was my base experience earned on this aircraft. I'm not researching anything, so no multipliers are involved and nothing was applied anywhere. So, that was a little depressing. Let's go jump in something a little bit more fun. So the Boston Mark I. Now, this plane is awesome. It was only available to purchase for 1 day between the 23rd and the 24th of January to celebrate the first flight of an A20 series multi-role fighter bomber. And a lot of people didn't end up purchasing it because they saw a Havoc Mark I that got worse matchmaking but had a higher reward. Well, no, it's not. The Boston is not carrying any of the radar equipment nor the battery equipment required to run it. It does not have the Night Fighter exhaust. It has the standard exhaust optimised for the performance of the engines. So what you've got is a machine that is several tons lighter than the Havoc Mark I and has more horsepower to boot. This thing accelerates faster than most fighters in the game. It can maintain 450 to 500 kilometers an hour in level flight without a dive. If you get this thing into a dive, it is almost uncatchable by anything in the game that it will face at the tier levels it fights at, and its reward is so high, this thing is a license to print money at low levels. If you were just starting the game and you purchased this in early January, no doubt by now you've researched out the entirety of Era 1, 2 and 3 British, and it would be off the back of this aircraft. It is a joy to fly. Now we're on the Korea map. I'm coming in low level to reduce detection range. I'm going straight for the bridge, which is the objective on this map. Now, interestingly enough, this aircraft was flown by the UK, but Britain didn't want it when it first arrived. The initial order for this aircraft was actually intended for the French. Now, at the time of the order, the Douglas Company had delivered 64 of the Boston 1s to the French, but on attempting to complete the order, they weren't fast enough and Germany was advancing in French borders, so it was impossible to complete the order. The 64 that were delivered were moved to French Africa to prevent capture by encroaching German forces, and the remainder of the order sat in limbo with no delivery and was offered to the UK. Now, as much as Britain didn't particularly want the A20s, they were watching Germany roll through France and getting ready to set up fortifications on the French coast leading towards England for a potential invasion, so they weren't about to turn down any aircraft they could get their hands on, so they begrudgingly took them. RAF Bomber Command Squadron 88 was outfitted with the French-intended Boston ones. However, they never saw service. They were outfitted in 1941. They never saw service until February 1942, where they were deployed against German cargo ships supplying German forces down the French coast. The results were devastating. The Bostons eliminated tonnage upon tonnage of German cargo ships and supplies. After seeing how successful they were in rapid strike aircraft, the British immediately placed an order for an upgraded version of the Boston I, the Boston Mark II, with a higher performance engine and a larger payload. The version we see in game is that intended French order, and it is beastly on its own. I would love to see the Boston II in game if this is what the Boston I is like. As you can see, 5:30 after breaking out of turns out of the river. I'm passing across. I'm not concerned with any of the low-level fighters that are in the area. There is nothing that can catch me. I'm breaking out wide and right. I want to make first strike on the bridge upcoming so I can eliminate the ability for enemy ground forces to cross into the airbase that we are intending to defend as the Allied forces on the Korea map. Armament and payload is exactly the same as the Havoc Mark I. It's the same Browning 7.7s in the nose, it's the same Vickers machine guns in the rear, exactly the same configuration, the same 500-pound bombs on board. 2 bomb drops straight in the centre of the bridge. Now keep in mind what you're seeing here when I engage this Lag 3. I still have 2 500-kilo bombs, or 2 500-pound bombs rather, on board. I'm carrying 1,000 pounds of bombs, and I'm about to go into a dogfight against a Lag 3 in the area of an I-15. I've killed the weapon, let my speed drift down. The Boston will overheat its oil relatively quickly, but as soon as you turn the weapon off, it immediately starts cooling down. It does have the same problems as the Havoc, with yawing the nose on. In the end, this is an extremely heavy fighter slash bomber to dogfight with, but it is much easier to keep those guns on target than it is in the Havoc. The radar equipment, the mass of the radar equipment and what it does to aircraft really shows itself between these two planes. Now I'm in this match with Caden Oz. He's in his French D520, and he's rolling around clearing fighters to my rear at the moment while I'm engaging this Lag 3. He shoots through momentarily, engaging a fighter that attempts to boom me. But again, at this level, the Boston's structure is strong enough that it can ignore most oncoming enemy fire and most anti-aircraft guns. Add to it that the Boston variant is faster and more manoeuvrable than the Havoc, and you've got a machine that takes a hell of a lot of focused fire from an enemy team to remove. You'd want to be a damn good pilot or a damn good shot to be able to solo one of these things easily. And there we go, the Lag 3 is fireballed, the incendiaries have done their work. There comes the Yak 7. Caden Oz is just down there out of shot after attempting to clear my tail. Do a rollover. We're both diving in, attempting to clear the target. I'll just boom out and let him go. The turning circle is wide, so it's always worth taking a bit of distance and then turning back on the target after it's gone straight. Allows you to get up a better boom angle. All boom and zoom tactics apply extremely well to this aircraft, and once again, despite being tagged, a crash but no kill awarded to anybody. Now once again, I go back to attacking ground forces, but the last remaining enemy aircraft is, well, we're facing the Russians. Once again, the survivor happens to be an SB-2M. And while I strafed through a couple of targets, I decided it was more important that I go about assisting in the removal of the SB-2M. Now it has taken damage, and it's running back to base. Just lining up to drop the last of my bombs on targets before moving to intercept the SB-2M, make myself a little bit lighter. Because of the overall manoeuvrability of this aircraft, its precision bombing is incredible. Moving targets are no problem at all to hit. And even dropping the bomb in close quarters, you've easily got enough speed that you are out of the blast zone, even if you release almost directly above the target by the time it hits the ground. Now, I've brought the plane around. I'm going to take a shot at strafing on the way through. The 7.7s do have a bit of an issue taking down vehicles unless you get really accurate shots on. It's not uncommon to take one or two passes simply to take out an AA truck. But for everything else the plane's capable of doing, it's a small cost to pay. Now, with the weight dropped, moving to intercept. Now, Caden Oz is on the final SB2M in his D520, moving to intercept. He's at a higher altitude than me. Also, I have an F2A Buffalo that is moving in to intercept the last target as well. Now, it's worth taking note, I am in a climb here, and I'm still out accelerating the F2A Buffalo. It drops into a dive to get up more speed. I'm just trying to get enough altitude that I can straight line over the top of all these hills. I still find it rather amusing that it's one of it is a light medium bomber, but it's still one of the best interceptors at this level. So level out and go to wet, push immediately past 400. Poor Buffalo can't keep up, and I'm gaining rapidly on both the D520 and on the SB2M, which has no chance of being able to outrun this thing, even with no damage involved to its own airframe. It could never outrun me. It does look like, however, it's got enough of a lead on that it's going to be able to make its own runway. Now, it's at this point that I have a bit of a choice to make. Now, there are two fighters moving to engage the SB2M, but the SB2M is going to make its own runway. Now, I could continue on and engage the SB2M myself, applying extra fire and going for an air-to-air kill to finish off the match. But by doing so, I'd be putting both my teammates at risk of anti-aircraft fire, where the Boston can basically ignore everything that airbase can throw at it. D520s and Buffaloes, not so much. A single good strike is going to take them out of the match. So instead of continuing through, I decided I'm going to get to the runway before the SB2M. I'm going to strip all the anti-aircraft defences from the base, so it cannot use them to defend itself. This will leave my fighters free to do whatever they wish to do to take the SB2M down. So come in low and fast. I'm not going to make that one, so I'll pass over. I'll turn back and clean it up after. Next target. Break out a little wide just to give me a better angle of attack. Wing over, full elevator turn. The Buffalo has seen what I'm doing and is moving to try and help me take down a couple of them quickly, so the SB2M has no cover. And that's all but the last AA already stripped from the base, so I just swing it back around. That AA is currently firing on Caden in his D520. So quickly remove them. Now the SB2M has no defences but its own, and it has two fighters on it, and I'm in a position to turn around and continue to engage. Now, with everything I've done so far, I've still got 592 rounds left in the main guns. The ammunition load on this plane is excellent. I've had to kill the WEP because the oil was starting to overheat again, but as you can see, as soon as I turned the WEP off, the engine immediately cooled. Bring it in low, maintaining speed. But the damage is already done between the D520 and the Buffalo. The SB2M goes through and takes out the mountain. Buffalo takes the kill, so nice work to him. And with that kill, all that was remaining is one AI that has been unlocated for all the match, so we turn around, ready to head back in and finish the job. So, 1 air and 11 ground targets, 57,209 silver lions, 7,466 mod research points, and 3,753 basic air research points. No modifiers due to me not researching. And it was so easy. The Boston would have to be one of my favourite low-level aircraft. It is a hell of a lot of fun to fly. And if you didn't get one this year at the 23rd and 24th, when it comes around next year on those dates and is made available to purchase, or if Gaijin decides to make it available for sale sometime between now and then, I fully recommend picking it up. It's great to fly, and especially if you've had a bad day at high levels, it's a good way to make money to recoup some of your losses and have a good time doing it. Anyways, ladies and gents, I'm going to call this one here. Tomorrow I'll be looking at the A20G and showing you the final of the A20 series that's currently available in game, at least till next patch, where it looks like another variant may be coming in, although that's unconfirmed at this time. Until next time, folks, click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.